blind babies looking for food. Starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every crew. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a dead old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather, I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double, but nature gets the shit in the way that's subtle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TV's whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't fear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't steer. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.
Alrighty, yo, check it out, y'all. It's been very, very busy. I mean, the news is turning over. Like, yeah, I don't know what to say. It's explosive day by day. It's almost like fighting a war. 2 seconds. Let me just check the audio real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Yes. All right. I'm back, y'all. I'm back. Yeah, I just had to do a little configuration change here. Now let me get back in the mix. It's been a lot of news. And of course, this is kind of like a trademark of Trump's whole policy. Like, this is just how it's been with Trump. He has been the type that, unfortunately, news is popping off every second. And there's nothing you can really do about it but watch, sit back, wonder when the train ride is going to crash, when it's going to be finished, when it's going to be done for good. And everybody's along for this wonderful ride, this roller coaster ride. This ride where this macho bravado, stick your chest out, break the Constitution, rip it in shreds, because we are the people that are allowed to do this because the law doesn't apply to Trump. And that was the signal that got put out. At least that's the signal that Trump got when the Supreme Court pretty much gave him immunity, which is the dumbest shit you could ever do. Why would you give the most powerful man on earth, regardless of what party you are from, presidential immunity. Why would you do that? That basically is carte blanche to do anything you want and just have the American people say, we don't do anything about it. I mean, so in other words, you can commit mass genocide and get presidential immunity just because you're the president. Is that what it comes down to? Because you give an order as the president and you can do anything? I mean, of course, that would be insane. And none of the people that support Trump would ever support another president who is anti-Trump doing that. So it doesn't make sense. That's not how you could ever build a country, right? You have to have norms. You have to have a median that takes hold, right? It can't be too far. I mean, some people would say slavery is not too far to the right. You know, I would say that's extremism. Some people would say women not having a right to vote isn't too far to the right. I would say that's extremism. That's like Al Qaeda, right? Women can't vote in Al Qaeda, right? You know, there's going to be slavery in Al Qaeda. You know what I'm saying? These kind of things. And it's ironic that we start here because today's message is all Americans need to unite against Trump and Vance oligarchy. All Americans, because it's very obvious that, I mean, at least to me, some of these maggots and trolls are still trying to figure out what's been going on. But this macho bravado has been a ploy the whole time. It's only been a ploy to reach certain kinds of people whose brains really resonate on that, who need to feel like who really don't feel good. And they need someone to remind them that they're special, they're the chosen few. You know, it's kind of like religious dogma, political dogma, right? You won't replace us. All of this stupid shit that doesn't add up to facts, that doesn't add up to something rational, right? When you really look at the math, who's been privileged in the country given the history and who has not. I mean, how could you be among the privileged and feel like someone's replacing you? It's crazy. It's like your own policies replace you. Your own actions replace you. And this is the crazy thing. This macho bravado has been a ploy for the oligarchies. They used it as a ploy to confuse the middle class and poor red state rural American white men specifically, you know, and white women, their families, or whoever follows after them. But this was a ploy because these people in the oligarch, they have nothing to do with anything red state. If they have to pass a law that helps red states, they can't do it. Like, for example, healthcare. Did they ever give a damn about healthcare for poor rural Americans? No, they never have. They actually, MAGA Mike Johnson goes out there every day and talks down to them. Able-bodied men shouldn't get access to health care through Medicaid. He's talking about you. Specifically, he's talking about red state males because the percentage of them is higher there. You see, it's the same thing with abortion. He's talking about controlling primarily red state women in terms of percentage, them and the right to their body. You know, the devastation that Trump has unleashed on America, red state people, the middle class and the poor almost have zero chance of surviving this. I mean, the people that they claim they're against, blue state, they have a little better chance. Why? Why do they have a little better chance? Why do you think that is? Employment is higher. It just will be. I mean, these red states depend on federal dollars. They're taker states. They function on welfare, on socialism primarily. They do. Texas is a state where if they didn't have military bases there, what would the economy look like if they didn't have military bases there? Why is it that they have military bases there and they still need extra funding? They still depend on extra funding from the federal government. Why is that? Florida, another state, they're a taker state. They generate less federal dollars than they use yearly, annually. So it's obvious that this talking down thing, this gaslighting thing that has been concocted by Elon Musk, by Peter Thiel, and utilized by Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Day by Day, Fox News, this gaslighting stuff. It's obvious that this ploy, that this talking down was essentially a way to get the permission from these people so that they could steal their future wealth. And the reality of it is that all they are doing is grifting. This is what they are doing. They are grifting with that message. The real thing going on here is Trump is filling his pockets, and he always has been. It's always been about that, and that is what's going on. And if you fall for it, the people that support Trump are more like Al Qaeda, or more like, these groups, Muslim groups that don't want women to have rights, right? That want to use slavery, yes, in the modern day. These MAGA folk and these trolls, because the trolls aren't real. They're just Chinese, Russian based, getting paid some pennies in a few foreign countries to get on the internet and pretend like they support Trump, but they can't tell you nothing about the United States. Like they grew up there, people that grew up in the United States can have these conversations. Trolls can't really have it. They don't really have souls, American souls. They have souls they hide. They don't want you to know. But this is pure grifting. This is pure grifting. And there's going to be plenty of MAGA people that can't accept it, that don't want to hear it. Yeah, I get that. Because, hey, looking in the mirror is very sad. Believing in something, finding out that you've been lied to, it's hard. It's hard to fucking do. But if you still think Santa Claus comes on, December 25th, and you believe that as an adult, something is fucking wrong with you. Something's just wrong with you. If you believe, if you believe, I'm not trying to piss anybody off, but if you're waiting for Jesus to come and solve your problems, something is really fucking wrong with you, because you wouldn't recognize the embodiment of Jesus's message if it hit you in the face. No, you probably shoot a can of tear gas at Jesus if he came down your street today. That's the reality of it. That's what's going on, and it's really, really sad, but this is where it's at. And to me, again, I'm an American, born and raised in the United States of America, born and raised in Washington, D.C. When my father grew up in D.C., it was a segregated city. I'm the first generation to grow up in a non-segregated Washington, D.C. So our generation grew up with civil rights activists, civil rights lawyers, teachers, doctors, et cetera, from all different backgrounds, Jewish, Irish, African American, some Native, very tiny percent of Native Americans. They've been almost exterminated out of DC area for a long time, and many other people, right? We grew up together, right? Although DC was a major African American ethnic city, right? However, both sides of my family come from the United States colonial period, before it was the United States, the colonial period. So having said all that, you don't have to take my word. You don't have to. I don't want anyone to believe my word. In fact, this is not a page for believers, for blind followers. You come here because you can think for yourself, and you can go out and disprove what I said is wrong, or prove that what I said is right. Everybody's not wrong, right or wrong every second of the day. But having said all of that, I don't care what you believe, because I live outside of the United States of America, where we've had universal health care for a generation, universal education for a generation. So you ain't hurting my pockets at all. Europeans, on average, take home $1,000 of their own money, of their own earnings, after paying taxes and after paying their expenses monthly. So you can live in the dark if you want. You can live in the dark if you want. That's all on you. You could live in the dark ages in your little dream where, where you making deals with the Al Qaeda, with Qatar to have a Qatari base in the United. You can live with that fantasy all you want, or you could join the rational people and say that is fucked up what Trump is doing. You can join that side of people, because that side of people is growing. See, that side of people is not just blue state people anymore. That side is not just only liberals now. See, that side of F Trump is not just those Democrats, those evil Democrats anymore. No, 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 no. It's not just them anymore. It's growing, and it's Trump's base that is joining the left and saying, stop the grift. When is this man going to get the fuck out of office and everybody down with his grift? Now, you can see in the chat. You can see in the chat, there's a question. Is this Trump's last week? Is it his last week? Because my theory is that the reason why you're seeing these extreme grifts now is because it is Trump's last week. He's trying to get every piece of penny before his heart fucking dies, before he can't walk out of the outside and say hello and talk shit in front of the cameras anymore. That's my view of it. Let me know what your view of it. Now let's check the backlash.
Quote, betrayed, fierce backlash tonight from the MAGA base after this surprising announcement with great fanfare from the Trump administration.
I'm also proud that today we're announcing or signing a letter of acceptance to build a Qatari Emiri Air Force facility at the Mountain Home Air Base in Idaho. The location will be host a contingent of Qatari F-15s and pilots to enhance our combined training, increase lethality, interoperability.
Now, if you support Qatar building a base in the United States, if you support what Pete Hegseth is saying, put a 1 in the chat. Even trolls can join along. If you do not support it, put a 2 in the chat, regardless of what your political affiliation is.
He's sitting next to a member of the Qatari royal family there, just to be clear. It's an announcement that caught everyone off guard. The administration greenlighting a plan for Qatar to build an Air Force facility in Idaho. And Trump's base is livid about it. Far-right activist Laura Loomer, who has Trump's ear, highly influential in MAGA world, lashing out. One of her posts, she says, what the hell is going on? Why are we trying to train more Muslims?
Okay, again, it's very simple. Stick to the news, guys. If you support what Pete Hegseth just said about Qatar building a base in the United States of America, trolls, I'm talking to you too. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with Pete Hegseth and what he just said. Support of Qatar building a base in the United States. If you do not agree, regardless of whatever political party you are, put a 2 in the chat if you do not agree. See, this is how you get to know who the trolls are. Just listen. Just look at how much the trolls got to say. But if you ask them a simple question, do they agree about Qatar building a base in the United States? They can't even answer. Look at that. That tells you.
Fly planes on U.S. soil. Didn't we already learn our lesson? Why are we encouraging more Islamic infiltration of our country by the founders of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood? This is very bad for our national security. And by the way, she had a lot more where that came from. Laura Loomer, in fact, has fired off about 40 more posts on X, slamming the decision. 40 posts on this today. Watch them populate the screen. They're mad. At one point, writing, this is where I draw the line. I am not voting in 2026. And then Steve Bannon came out.
Look, I'm just going to say, every American, regardless of your political party, that disagrees with this, hold on to your First Amendment rights, hold on to your Second Amendment rights, third, fourth, because we're going to resolve this problem together. We're going to resolve this problem together. Watch.
Came out and told Newsweek there should never be a military base of a foreign power on the sacred soil of America. Now, to clarify, Qatar is building a facility to house a squadron of F-15 pilots and teams. I mean, that's a lot of Qatari military personnel on an existing U.S. base. And maybe there are serious security concerns with that, but there are concerns. There are when it comes to corruption. For one, this is the same country that gifted Trump the luxury jet. Remember the jet? Reported price tag on it was $400 million. The jet that Trump wants to use is Air Force One, right? That was Qatar. And by the way, when it comes to money, because it always does, Trump's family and the Qataris are business partners now. Eric Trump recently unveiled plans for a new golf course and a beachside resort in Qatar. And Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has raised billions of dollars from several Middle Eastern countries, including Qatar. Qatar is also central to the Trump's Middle East crypto strategy, which is now the bulk of his net worth, helped make his children billionaires. Most recently, Qatar also made sure to stay in Trump's good graces by rolling out the red carpet for the president during his visit as president. Fighter jets escorted Air Force One into the airspace of Qatar. On the ground, the spectacle had cyber trucks, horses, and camels. A welcome for a royal. But on
Oh my God, yo, I'm telling you, listen, just make sure you fill out the poll, and even the trolls can fill out the poll too. Don't worry. We know how to get the trolls out of the polling. But check this out again. Do you support this in the United States of America? If you support it, you could put a 1. We already know a lot of trolls exist in the chat, so don't worry about that. But if you don't, you put a 2. Don't worry about the rest. I understand a lot of people listen and don't participate in the chat because of the current political situation where you have a president that is trying to run around and make things like supporting the Constitution. All of a sudden, that means you're part of an extremist group if you support the Constitution. Now, here's a better question. If you stand by the Constitution of the United States of America 100%, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't, which is likely what most trolls feel, put a 2 in the chat if you do not stand behind the United States Constitution. If you are for 100% the United States Constitution, put a 1 in the chat. That's First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third, Fourth, and all of that stuff. And if you are not for that 100%, put a 2 in the chat. Just to make it very clear, because I'm for the first, I'm for the Constitution 100%. And I'm telling you, anybody that's getting in the motherfucking way of that is going to experience number 2, period, regardless of who you are. You see? So, and I'm not worried about no trolls in the goddamn chat either. I'm not worried about anybody's fucking opinion. I have my First Amendment right, freedom of goddamn speech. Okay, so at some point it's going to get real. And when this gets real, it's going to be blue and red states against this bullshit. It's going to be conservatives and liberals against this bullshit. Yes, conservatives and liberals believe in their Second Amendment too. Okay, so let's just keep going.
But on top of all of that, there is this. Trump just signed an executive order defending Qatar's security.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the Epstein list at? Exactly. Keep in mind, while they're doing this, these are the same people that don't want the Epstein list to be released. This is crazy.
Giving NATO-level security guarantees to Qatar, which, by the way, just to be clear about what that could mean, I mean, it should be obvious, but I guess I should also note that Qatar has been hit with missiles from Iran and Israel, both in the past 3 months. It's an incredible series of events. I mean, by the way, in any case, it's an incredible series of events to lay all that out. I can't even believe I'm saying it, and this is real, but it is. But then there's also this, what Trump actually said in the past on the record about the Qataris before they showered him with gifts and money.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level.
This is how you know Trump is on his last week. Look, I'm telling you, Trump is sick. He's a sickly, gluttonous man who has grifted, and he is on his way out. This is maybe one of his last grifts. Because this doesn't even make sense even for an extreme lunatic like Trump. The only thing that can make it make sense is he needs one more cash insertion into his private bank. And he's indeed been known for selling out the United States of America in every way, shape, and form. So my thought is make sure you fill out that poll. Don't worry, trolls. You can also fill it out. It's all right. We know how to read through troll comments and all of that. We've been through that, done that. We see how it works. And yes, we can adapt also. We can adapt our minds because we know trolls don't have real American experience. They can't tell you what they can't qualify their Americanness in any way like real Americans can, So when we get into specifics here, that's why I like to ask questions of the trolls too. But fill out the poll. If you think this is Trump's last week, let me know. If you I think it's the motherfucker's last week, and I have zero respect for Donald J. Trump or anybody associated with him. All of you can get the middle finger. Fuck you. Like seriously. Yes. And I am happy that you people that got sent out there to invade other American states are worried about your paycheck now. I'm very happy, and we will be revisiting that because you should have known that you didn't have a supermajority in Congress in the first place before you went out there. Oh yeah, we're gonna go clean these streets up. Oh really? You're gonna clean the streets up from the people that pay your motherfucking bills? Wow, that's real special.
And that right there is a big part of why MAGA is breaking with Trump over this Qatari Air Force facility in the state of Idaho. But by the way, this is not the only crack splitting the MAGA world. This was today, but Joe Rogan has spoken out, tearing into Trump's immigration policy.
Let's just talk about the immigration thing. Let's just talk about the immigration thing. The way it looks is horrific. When you're just arresting people in front of their kids and just normal, regular people that have been here for 20 years, that everybody who has a heart can't get along with that.
No.
Everybody who has a heart sees that and goes, that can't be right. That can't be right. That can't be the only way to do this.
Tucker Carlson going after the administration for you.
So let's just make it very clear. Christine Estrada, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, hit the like button, y'all. Please do that. I have been dropping some of this, political commentary for maybe the last year. I'm pretty new at this, but last month I got something like maybe 2 million views. So I appreciate everybody that's been viewing. Listen. This is real talk as far as being Americans. We don't have to agree on everything. And the United States of America was not built on as a country by people that agree on everything. Quite the contrary. It's been built by people that disagree on a lot, but find a way to move forward. You see what I'm saying? And change and grow. Right? That's been the history of the United States. Now, I want to give a big up to everybody that has been out there, no matter if you've been fighting in the courts, no matter if you've been fighting in the streets, no matter how you've been fighting on the internet to stand up against this fool for our country. I want to thank you so much, and I want to big you up because especially the people, but let's not underestimate, we all play a role in stopping this fool. Yes, we got to have respect for the congressional members that have been doing what they can do to stop, to slow down this fool's movement in the White House, in terms of the legalities of it, fighting back against the Supreme Court. Because you got to remember the lawyers, if you don't have people to come in and represent these groups like the people against the United States, and Trump, right? A lot of this shit he would have gotten away with anyway. We would have no Fourth Amendment right now. You cannot depend on a right-wing Supreme Court anymore. We cannot depend. So the people that have been taking the time in every way, no matter what state you're in real life, I'm giving you my personal thanks as a fellow American. Trolls, you don't have a soul. You don't really exist. You're imposters. You're make-believe. You take petty crumbs from people that will pay you from a country. I mean, how much you getting paid? What is a penny an hour? God damn. What is this? Shit. Listen, I can pay you more, trolls. If you need a job, I can pay you. Now, listen, let me know what healthcare provider you have in your actual state. And please don't be saying Medicaid and Medicare, because we know if you're really a resident of a state, it's likely not even called that, even though you receive it. So let me know in the chat so we can split up who the trolls are versus who ain't. The trolls are going to have to, they're going to go to Google real quick. So quickly, just let me know what healthcare provider you have real quick in the chat. Let's go on.
Charlie
Let's
Kirk's
keep it playing.
assassination to try to silence critics.
Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul.
And when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein.
Let's hear that again. Let's hear that one more time. Wow, that was interesting from a one-time extreme right. He's a right-winger, but this is interesting to hear that from Tucker Carlson. Let's listen.
To try to silence critics.
Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul.
Yeah. I think what he said makes a whole lot of sense right there. They don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. And that's why we have the Second Amendment, right? And that's why I encourage everybody to calmly and peacefully go downtown, go to whatever your commune is in the United States, register for your license to bear arms and buy a few weapons for your home. Put them in your safe or whatever, lock them away. Don't put them in your kids' possession. Make sure they're safe away from young people. When your kid turns around 16, something like that, the ones that are 16, you can go to the gun range with them. They have them in every state, in blue states too. You can go to the gun range with your kids and just let it be known that we have the right to bear arms. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you're not one of the rights. You know, you could be sure that Trump is going to challenge this. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and these oligarchs, they hate the fact that Americans are one of the few people in the world that have the right to bear arms. And you need to understand this. The United States of American citizenry has more arms, is armed more than China and Russia's citizenry put together. Yes, they're not really allowed to have arms that freely. Why do you think that is? Just think about that. Why do you think that is? It's so their regime can oppress them and they have to go along with shit anytime the regime wants to. So we're at a moment like that in the U.S. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying don't coordinate, don't be involved in politics. I'm not saying that. I'm saying while you exercise your Second Amendment rights, exercise the rest of your rights too. Be involved in politics. Make sure you're voting. Make sure that you're supporting groups that are fighting things in the courts for your population where you live. I'm saying exercise all your rights. First, let's deal with first. Tucker's talking about the first right now.
And when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, Marjorie...
Because they don't consider you human. What to say. They're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul.
And when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, Marjorie Taylor Greene slamming a statement by the White House that labeled any support for the release of the Epstein files as a, quote, hostile act.
The hostile act has been against these women for so many years now. The hostile act is covering up for Jeffrey.
Now, trolls, do you support Marjorie? I'm talking to the trolls. We know that we know that Marjorie is a Republican. She's always saying she stands by her president, but she doesn't support him. Now she says she don't support him verbatim. So trolls, do you agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene's statement right here? Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with it. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with it, and put a 2 in the chat if you don't. Let's hear it.
A, quote, hostile act.
The hostile act has been against these women for so many years now. The hostile act is covering up for Jeffrey Epstein and everyone else that's been involved in this. And that's the real hostile act.
Christian Holmes is out front live outside the White House. And
see, a lot of these trolls, you know, they actually support the Taliban. They actually support extremism. They actually are not for women's rights. They actually support sex slavery, you know, and when you give them a chance to go to do something to stop it, you know, they won't do it. Like, for example, it's only political. It's only like, you know, it's only for trolling. When the election was around, all these trolls wanted the release of the Epstein files. If you ask them now, they don't have any comment about the Epstein files now. They just don't know if they still want the Epstein files anymore. The Epstein files is not that important anymore. I've had so many people come to this page, and even in some of my posts, I'm listening and reading some of the comments, and it's people, you know, when you look at the shorts, there's trolls there trying to explain themselves. They trying to rape-splain. They trying to Epstein-splain right now and explain how, you know, it's not really that important to have the Epstein files released, you know, acting like, you know, and they will come out. One of them said, I have all the respect for the victims. I have all the respect. And then they do some Epstein-splaining after that. Listen, the Epstein files are not only, and I've been saying this to folks, it's not only about the girls that were victims. It's not only about the sex slavery. It is also about the blackmail and espionage that's being used to control congressional members, control possibly Supreme Court judges or lower judges in the Supreme Court across the country, and senators possibly. Is being used to control people. What has been done? So if you don't know who's being blackmailed, you don't actually know who has influence over your government. And it's not enough to just keep saying who does. Keep saying what your theory is. You need to get to the bottom of who does. Who else? Because the United States government is likely and definitely not the only government that has access to the Epstein files. Nah. And on top of that, the Epstein files is just one aspect of it. There could be other cases. Like, you think, I mean, if you think Trump was in the Epstein files, and a lot of people say, they say that the FBI said that he was in the Epstein files. He was mentioned over 300 times. That's what the FBI reporting says. Or that's what news reports say that had access to them parts of it. Well, if he's mentioned in the Epstein files, Trump was over in Russia doing these beauty pageants. What do you think he was doing over there? What files do you think Russia have on Trump? You see what I mean? And not only Trump. Look at MAGA Mike Johnson. I mean, don't you wonder why MAGA Mike Johnson, just no matter what, has to support Trump and Trump only, basically to his grave? Why do you think that is? Is it possible? Forget the Epstein files. Is it possible somebody has something on MAGA Mike that they're holding over his head? Because he looks like he's in a lot of pain, and we're going to review that.
And, you know, Kristen, obviously we're putting in the context of so many issues where there are fault lines. But tonight, real anger in MAGA world about this latest announcement. What are you learning?
Yeah, there is real anger about that. And I do want to talk about the cracks overall, because I actually think.
Okay, so CNN is reporting that there's real anger in the MAGA world about what is going on with Trump, Qatar's deal, right? Among other things. So is it true, trolls? Is it true, that statement? Is there real anger in the MAGA world about this deal with Qatar? Put a 1 in the chat if there is real anger from the MAGA world. Put a 2 in the chat if you think it's just a liberal lie. I want to wait. I want to see. Is there real anger in the MAGA world? Just curious. Or is this all just propaganda? You know, I mean, you know, the trolls get to have it any way they want. They get to pretend there's no anger in the MAGA world. Okay, I get it. You know, this is so funny. This is so funny. Don't worry. Trolls don't have an opinion this time around. You know, again, is there real anger? Is there real anger in the MAGA world? If they don't, you see, this is so funny. This is so funny. Yo, this is hilarious. You know, that's how you know they're trolling, because the trolls don't really come from the United States of America, because anyone would know if Marjorie Greene Taylor is angry about this shit. And there's way more people that have gone on record already in the last 24 hours that are MAGA people. These trolls, they will pretend they never seen it.
Think what we just learned moments ago, which is not about the Air Force Base, but actually about these federal worker layoffs, is going to cause real strain on the relationship between the administration and a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill, because we've just learned in a court filing that more than 4,000 federal workers were laid off today. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, it's about 315 workers at the Department of Commerce, 466 workers at the Department of Education, 187 at the Department of Energy. That list goes on and on. A couple things to point out here. There were already reservations among Republicans as to how this shutdown was being handled. We've heard them speak out about it. The fact that the House has not been called into session. The fact that these workers' pay was being threatened. We heard President.
Yes, MAGA Mike Johnson, at the time that these people, ICE, they're not going to get paid. National Guard being sent out by Texas governor to another state that already has their own National Guard, even though Texas is a taker state, even though Texas earns or generates less federal dollars than they use. Texas uses federal dollars that comes from other states. That's socialism. That's what that is. Yes. Now, all of this is going on. These National Guard won't get paid. These ICE agents won't get paid. None of these federal workers will get paid. And MAGA Mike Johnson has the nerve to give them another vacation, to tell them to go home and not come into Congress to communicate or vote. I mean, so if you support MAGA Mike Johnson sending congressional members home, going out of session for an additional week. We're talking about this upcoming week. They won't be in Washington. None of the Republican congressional members will be in Washington. If you support that, put a 1 in the chat. If you do not support that, put a 2 in the chat. And if you just say anything else, I'll assume that you don't support it, but you don't want to say so. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I mean, sorry. It takes a supermajority to release funds. Just for the people that don't know, 51 votes doesn't release the funds, and they do it that way on purpose. And it doesn't work that way for Republicans or Democrats. It works that way for everybody, you see. And for them to get paid, they must reach an agreement with some Democrats. And that hasn't happened yet because MAGA Mike Johnson keeps sending Republicans home and telling them not to negotiate. So I'm actually cool with Democrats not agreeing. I say Democrats should hold out. I think Democrats should hold out and make the Republicans bend to every single thing that they demand, every single thing. And it's not just the health care of Americans that's at stake. They should, put this dude to rest. Like, my view of it is stay in the shutdown until Trump is out of office, because he's going out of office anyway. Look, the man is getting sick. And on top of it, because of that, you're never going to be able to impeach him. So you may as well hold out.
President Trump saying some workers did.
And on top of it, if Republicans really wanted the military being paid, if they really wanted ICE being paid, if they really wanted that, there's another way they could do it that they seem to be refusing to do. It's cool.
At one point saying they were going to look at the law differently. The law he signed in 2019, education, 187 at the Department of Energy. That list goes on and on. A couple of things to point out here. There were already reservations among Republicans as to how this shutdown was being handled. We've heard them speak out about it. The fact.
Actually, it's some Dems quietly. We should go take their seats. Leah, Issa, there's Dems that have been winning elections, special elections across the country, right in the midst of this. But they don't really get televised because Trump keep doing crazy shit like, announcing he's going to let Qatar have a military base in the United States. It's crazy.
There were already reservations among Republicans as to how this shutdown was being handled. We've heard them speak out about it. The fact that the House has not been called into session. The fact that these workers' pay was being threatened. We heard President Trump saying some workers didn't deserve to get paid. And at one point saying they were going to look at the law differently, the law he signed in 2019, to say that they wouldn't have to pay those furloughed workers. But now you.
Let's hear it again. So there's Republicans that are not happy about MAGA Mike Johnson and how he's been handling the shutdown and sending officials home. Let's listen again.
At the Department of Energy. That list goes on and on. A couple of things to point out here. There were already reservations among Republicans as to how this shutdown was being handled. We've heard them speak out about it. The fact that the House has not been called into session. The fact that these workers' pay was being threatened. We heard President Trump saying some workers didn't deserve to get paid. And at one point saying they were going to look at the law differently, the law he signed in 2019, to say that they wouldn't have to pay those furloughed workers. But now you have a complete restructuring of the federal workforce. Of course, we know that the president has extended powers during a government shutdown, but it's really unprecedented to use them in this way to restructure the government essentially in your image. Because what we know from Russell Vought, the head of the Office of Management and Budget, and from President Trump is that they want to cut Democratic programs. They want to cut programs that don't align with President Trump. And now we're learning how many people lost their jobs just today. And that was a real point of contention for a lot of Republicans. They didn't like the threats about money. They didn't like the threats of layoffs. And now you're seeing the actual layoffs. And how this impacts the framing of this shutdown is really going to be what's interesting to watch, because it does not seem as though any side is backing down, even though you've got this
Why? Because Trump doesn't give anyone any reason to, doesn't give Democrats specifically any reason to go along with Republicans. That's the issue. Trump has already shown that he is going to cut and lay off federal workers anyway. Just as many anyway. You see, so that is not inducive to bargaining or negotiating. That's the issue. And that's why I say, hey, you may as well, the Dems may as well take this to the end. They may as well start saying, you know what? If Trump is not impeached, if Trump doesn't step down, if JD Vance doesn't step down, then no deal. They may as well take it all the way there. They should just take it because, listen, a shutdown can last indefinitely. That means there's no time that it can't continue. It can continue on until next year. And if you're going to commit harm against more American citizens financially, if you're going to fire more federal workers anyway, then hey, you may as well do it on your own terms. And that's what Trump is planning on doing. Trump is planning on firing and furloughing, not paying people on his own terms. So why shouldn't Dems do the same? Now, Republicans, the congressional members, the Congress of the United States controls all the dice if they have a supermajority, meaning more than 51 votes, meaning 60, something like 60% of the Congress can impeach Trump. 60% of the Senate can do the same. 60% of Congress can actually impeach federal judges. That means Supreme Court judges. You got to have a supermajority, though, to do it. It's not 51%. It's 60. The bar is a little higher. That means you have to have agreement. You have to have some agreement from both sides. You don't have to have all agreement, but you have to have agreement from both sides of the aisle. And you can do those kind of things. Now, to me, it looks like the reality is this. You either are going to support a man named Donald J. Trump and his cabinet and JD Vance, who seem to think it's okay for Qatar to have a military base in the United States of America, or you don't. But you can't have it both ways. You're either going to support that and everything that comes along with it, health cuts to 20 to 60% to the people that have health care, and the others that can't get it, could never get it anyway. They're totally out of the picture anyway. You're going to support price hikes, more expensive goods. On top of that, you're going to support more homelessness of rural Americans also, right? You're going to support all these negatives, or you're going to stop Donald J. Trump and his regime on this issue. Either way, you're going to have it either way.
Real uneasiness among Republicans when it comes to this kind of behavior.
Now,
let's just talk about the immigration thing. The way it looks is horrific. When you're just arresting people in front of their kids and just normal, regular people that have been here for 20 years, that everybody who has a heart can't get along with that.
No.
Everybody who has a heart sees that and goes, that can't be right. That can't be right. That can't be the only way to do this.
Do you agree with Joe Rogan or do you disagree with Joe Rogan? If you agree with Joe Rogan's statement, put a 1 in the chat. If you disagree with his statement, put a 2 in the chat. Let's hear it again.
Who has a heart? When you're just arresting people in front of their kids and just normal, regular people that have been here for 20 years, that everybody who has a heart can't get along with that.
No.
Everybody who has a heart sees that and goes, that can't be right. That can't be right. That can't be the only way to do this.
Exactly. It can't be the only way to do this, and never was the only way to do this. Actually, you're not even being effective in doing this. You're creating more hate than you're actually getting rid of illegal immigrants. And that's the crazy part about it. Now, let's flip the script because there's more news, and it never stops. This is just more of a waste of taxpayer dollars. And you can keep in mind, hold on, let's play this. You can keep in mind that this is all being done on the taxpayer dollars, while the National Guard does not get paid. And MAGA Mike Johnson knows how this works. Trump knows how it works. J.D. Vance knows how it works. ICE, when they're not paid, National Guard, when they're not paid, guess who? Even the military that is going out protecting the country outside of the country, while they're not being paid. Oh, it is so sad. While they're not. Oh, this is so sad. Oh, man, I don't even know what to say about this, because this has reached such a shameful level. But let's dig into it. While they're not going to be paid, MAGA Mike Johnson is paid. Donald J. Trump is paid. Caroline Leavitt is paid. Their salaries are protected. Hakeem Jeffries' salary is protected. Every congressional member's salary is protected. Every senator's salary is protected. Donald Trump's salary is protected. The majority of the Senate and the House are Republicans. The White House are all Republicans. They're all getting paid. Just keep that in mind. Their salaries have never been threatened, and they were always aware that their salaries would never be threatened. They were always aware that ICE salaries could be threatened, or would be threatened. They were always aware that the National Guard salary would be threatened. They were always aware that the military salary would be threatened, because they're paid to know these things in advance and start discussions regarding it. And that's what this was about. They didn't agree in September about the budget. So they're still talking about it. Look, here we go. So let's check it out. And now things have even progressed to where it's like there's going to be so much inflation. Any agreement in the past made on the budget doesn't even work, because the motherfucking finances of the country have changed dramatically. Now, listen, these are more people that are upset.
And this president, you better start obeying the Constitution. You better start obeying the Constitution. It's going to get real ugly if you don't follow the laws and obey the Constitution like you swore an oath to do. The president came out just yesterday, okay? And he says, I'm going to pick and choose which federal employees that I give back pay to. Okay, so once again, he is indicating that he's going to violate the law and do something that's unconstitutional and despicably, not treat people fairly like we should in this country, okay, but pick and choose whether he's going to give back pay to the federal employees that he likes. The president, his job is to serve this country, not treat the U.S. Treasury like his private piggy bank. That's the American people's money.
It's the American people's money. Look, the taxpayers, the people who pay federal taxes, payroll taxes, federal payroll taxes, right? They pay for the people that clock into a job. They pay 75% of the federal budget. That's average Americans. We're not talking about federal dollars coming from corporations. Just 75% is average people that check in 9 to 5 or whatever that happens to pay the federal budget. Now, the majority of them, these are not people that come from red states. Just keep that in mind, because most of these red states, a lot of these red states, the big ones, Texas, Florida, they're taker states. They're states that take more in federal dollars than they generate. States like Chicago generates more federal dollars than it uses. States like New York generate more federal dollars than they use. And it's like that across a lot of states in the United States. So that means when you look at the actions of these governors, when you look at how they vote over funding, things like this, when you look at how they negotiate, the taker states are the ones that aren't even willing to negotiate. And they're the ones that are receiving the most welfare. They're the ones that are receiving the most socialism, yet they're pointing the finger at blue states. That's ridiculous. Texas sent its National Guard to Chicago when Chicago has its own National Guard, when Texas doesn't even generate enough federal dollars itself. It has to rely on help from the rest of the country. It's crazy. It's crazy. And this man is breaking it down. Listen.
How dare you go out there and say,
The president is supposed to spend and exercise the law as decided by the Congress and Senate. He is not supposed to make up laws on spending himself at all. He doesn't decide spending. That's Congress.
I'm gonna give back pay to the people that I like and not for the people that I don't like. We are in a dangerous spot in this country when the president thinks that he can just, ignore laws that are written in plain English. That law that you must give back pay to federal employees, okay? That is written in plain English, and he's just...
Look, somebody in the chat says Chicago and New York aren't states. Yes, so just change it to Illinois and New York. Illinois generates more federal tax dollars than it uses. New York State generates more tax dollars than it uses. Texas generates less federal tax dollars than it uses. Florida generates less tax dollars than it uses. That means Texas and Florida rely on help from other states' tax dollars. That's socialism. But they're pointing the finger at New York and Illinois. You're sending federal troops from poor states, from states that have poor employment, from states that generate less dollars than they actually use. And you're telling them to send their servants, their National Guard and workers to another state that generates more money, has better employment, it doesn't make any sense. There's no way you could cut it.
The American people that he's going to ignore it. Okay? Nobody. I don't care who you are. I don't care what side of the aisle on. It doesn't matter. You got a constitution. You got to faithfully execute the Constitution, and he's ignoring it. And so both parties and every American should be furious with the threats that this president is making to federal employees in this country. Okay? So Congress, do your damn job. Yeah. Do your damn job and pass a budget. That's going to require a little compromise. Yeah. It's not a one-sided thing. If you don't have a bill, you haven't done your job. Yeah. So do your job. And this president, you better start obeying the Constitution. You better start obeying the Constitution. It's going to get real ugly if you don't follow the laws and obey the Constitution like you swore an oath to do.
I agree with his sentiment. It's going to get real ugly if Donald J. Trump doesn't start following the laws as he was elected to do. In the midst of the government shutdown, President Trump's vow to withhold back pay from furloughed federal workers has sparked outrage. Randy Irwin, president of the National Federation of Federal Employees, publicly condemned this move, calling it a violation of the Constitution and federal law. The 2019 law guarantees that full retroactive pay for all affected employees, yet Trump's proposal to selectively deny compensation undermines this protection and democratic norms. Yes, it does. Now, back to pay. MAGA Mike Johnson, he was in C-SPAN and he had a really nice time on C-SPAN, Epstein-splaining and Gruft-splaining. You know, he spent some time explaining to the viewers of C-SPAN how, although he still gets his salary, you stupid fucking ICE people don't. You fucking military don't. See, he spent time explaining how MAGA Mike Johnson is down with classism, how the military people, you're not on the same level of him as he is. His salary is guaranteed. Your salary isn't. So all those big chest pumping ICE people, guess what? Guess what? Do you want Democrats to negotiate with Republicans? Do ICE people want Democrats to negotiate with Republicans? Do you want Republicans to negotiate with Democrats on your future life, on your future salary? Or do you want to not get paid another check? Because MAGA Mike Johnson has sent the Republican Congress out of session. Actually, he sent the entire Congress out of session. He's telling them, do not negotiate. That means you're not getting a check. That means you're not getting a check. Now let's listen.
Obamacare actually live in states that President Trump won in 2024. We're talking about some...
The main receivers... the red states rely on Obamacare. This is crazy.
19 million people, Mr. Speaker. Can those people depend on congressional Republicans to extend those health insurance tax credits by the time they expire?
We have plenty of time to figure that.
He said they have plenty of time and he sent them home. Okay, so let's get to the C-SPAN. Where is C-SPAN at? This was hilarious. I really, really, really liked the C-SPAN coverage. on MAGA Mike Johnson. It was himself. He came on there. He was allowed to answer any questions that he wanted, and he just neglected to answer. I mean, he answered the questions how he wanted them answered, I guess you could say. But in my mind, it was horrible. But in some trolls' minds, he answered the questions well, I guess you could say. I don't know. I don't know how trolls feel sometimes about this stuff. They don't always seem to be in the news with MAGA Mike Johnson's statements or Republican statements. I mean, trolls in the chat, they don't even seem to know much about Qatar's deal. Trolls, let me know. People that support Trump, let me know. Do you agree with the idea that that Qatar should have a military base in the United States? Let me know how you feel about that, because I'm curious. It doesn't seem like many of them actually really answered it. But let me see here. Look, let's go. Is it this one, this, and this? Let me pull these up. I think I missed these, so let me pull these up. Where are they at? Are they right here? Right here? Let me know how you feel about that deal with Qatar. Should the deal go through? I'm just curious. Here we go. Let's see here. MAGA Mike Johnson. This was MAGA Mike Johnson on C-SPAN. And hold on. Let me make sure I got these right. He was on C-SPAN, and he did a wonderful job. I'm sure the trolls really, really, really agree with MAGA Mike Johnson here. And I'm happy that he went on C-SPAN.
Hi, Mr. Johnson. So my question or comments are related to what you said yesterday about not being open to pass any legislation to ensure that military gets paid. I'm sure you can tell by my voice I'm very shaky. Just want you to hear a little bit about my family. I have 2 medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country. He suffers from PTSD from his 2 tours in Afghanistan. If we see a lapse in pay come the 15th, my children do not get the medication that's needed for them to live their life, because we live paycheck to paycheck. I heard you earlier say that you side.
Hold on. Yo, Suffer Boy 3000. Exactly. You know, they agree because their dear leader told them, you know, their authorized leader told them, you must go along with the Qatar deal. And if you go on the internet, you better not say a goddamn thing. What's up, that's Bits? Now, listen to this. When I'm talking about trolls, listen to this response. This is, I don't know, what is this? Me ain't no trolls supporting Trump, man. She straight up grown man. Know what they're doing, and they know how to do it. Does that sound like a troll, y'all? That was Night Hospitalizer. I'm sorry, you write like a troll, man. Now, in any case, Bits, did you hear MAGA Mike Johnson? Let's hear this.
My question or comments are related to what you said yesterday about not being open to pass any legislation to ensure that military gets paid. I'm sure you can tell by my voice I'm very shaky. Just want you to hear a little bit about my family. I have 2 medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country. He suffers from PTSD from his 2 tours in Afghanistan. If we see a lapse in pay come the 15th, my children do not get the medication that's needed for them to live their life, because we live paycheck to paycheck. I heard you earlier say that you side with President Trump on anything that he says. Well, I just read an article this morning that said he absolutely wholeheartedly believes that there needs to be legislation put in so that we do not miss a paycheck. You have the power to do that. And as a Republican, I'm very disappointed in my party, and I'm very disappointed in you, because you do have the power to call the House back. You did that, or you refused to do that just for a show. I am begging you to pass this legislation. My kids could die. We don't have the credit because of the medical bills that I have to pay regularly. You could stop this, and you could be the one that could say military is getting paid. And I think that it is awful, and the audacity of someone who makes 6 figures a year to do this to military families.
All right, Samantha.
Samantha, I'm so sorry to hear about your situation. The reason I've been so angry this week, and they've been calling me out on media, Johnson's angry. I am angry because of situations just like yours. I have a big military district, and my district is the home of the Global Strike Command at Barksdale Air Force Base. And
Now, look, these Republicans, they're not like these congressional members. They're not like everyday people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're not like they don't have attributes that are like that. But everyday people don't know the Constitution and don't know the law, unfortunately. Now, congressional members are hired specifically for that attribute, to know the law, to know how government works specifically. Okay, the everyday American usually doesn't know that, right? Now, MAGA Mike Johnson, he knew that there was going to be this issue coming up in terms of funding. He knew that. Every Republican knew that that issue was about to arise in Congress. You heard him talk about it. We could talk about that later on this year. Why don't we talk about it? And we don't have to really decide until December. Why do we have to talk about it? So he knew it was coming up, and he knew that he needed a supermajority to get this next this next funding off the, out of the ground, this temporary funding. He knew that. They knew in advance of sending the National Guard out. They knew that in advance of sending out ICE agents across the country to quote unquote Democratic states. They knew this because it is their job specifically to know this. They get paid your tax dollars to know this, whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat or independent, even if you're not. Any person that pays federal pay taxes, federal payroll taxes, they put money in these people's pockets, MAGA Mike Johnson's pockets, to know these things specifically. But they went ahead with it like they didn't need Democrats at all. And this is the result. Donald Trump told him, do not negotiate, do not negotiate, do not negotiate. And MAGA Mike Johnson has followed Trump's orders 100%.
and Fort Polk, the Joint Readiness Training Center. I have one of the biggest military districts and military families in America. I have a lot of airmen and soldiers who are deployed right now, and they have young families at home, and they have...
Now listen, a lot of red states is where these military facilities are. If they don't get funded, guess who else? A lot of the private industry around these military bases, they actually indirectly are getting some of that money. Yes, because military people don't like to stay on base all fucking day. They like to go out and shop. They like to go out and buy clothes. They like to go out and take their kids swimming. They like to do all kinds of things that regular everyday people do. Well, if they don't get their check, that means these small private companies that are in these states are also going to take an economic hit. Now, Republicans knew that in advance. Trump knew that in advance. Congressional members knew that in advance. Senators knew that in advance. And Trump told them, do not negotiate or I will come after you personally.
They have children in health situations like yours. This is what keeps me up at night. I want you to hear something very clearly. The Republicans are the ones delivering for you. We had a vote to pay the troops. It was the continuing resolution 3 weeks ago. Every single Republican but two.
You hear that? It was the continued resolution. It was the continued resolution. Oh, really? So guess what happened? Didn't happen.
Voted to keep the government open so that your paycheck can flow. Every Democrat in the House, except for one, voted to close it. The Democrats.
Exactly. And didn't Trump tell you don't negotiate with Democrats? Yes, he did. Didn't Trump say, yes, we're going to send out ICE and we're going to send out the National Guard to Democratic states, even though Democratic states said they don't want it, even though Democratic states pay more to the federal budget than red states do? You're still going to send them out when they're the ones that are paying more of the federal budget than red states? What's up with that? That makes no sense. Of course, Democrats aren't going to go along with it.
Democrats are the ones that are preventing you from getting a check. If we did a vote on the floor, pay troops, it's not a lawmaking exercise because Chuck Schumer is going to hold that up in the Senate. He is demonstrating by voting now 6 times.
I just want to start by saying, hearing you say that everyone is smiling in the cities where troops, our National Guard has been rolled into, feels dystopian and insane to hear you say that, watching the response to this. But that's not actually my question. My question, I just needed to say that while hearing you talk about this. My question is, if Republicans and Democrats can agree to a one-year extension to the ACA subsidies, removing this sort of talking point of illegal immigrants draining our resources as you sit here and lie about this, would you support that bill and bring it to a vote on the House floor? This is a big question that I have for you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, not lying. I'm telling you the truth, and you can go look at all the documents yourself. Don't look at Republican paperwork. Look at the Congressional Budget Office, who said that we had at least 1.4 million illegal aliens draining the resources from Medicaid, which is...
Can I just point out, they for months
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Bits. Thanks about that. Yo, you can't tell the difference between trolls and cult members. Yeah, it's difficult. Just small English grammatic differences. But check this out. Now, it seems to be a lot of MAGA people that don't know that people aren't getting funded right now. A lot of them don't know. And a lot of them confuse different bills with understanding how they connect with funding. So I'm going to ask this simple question just to circumvent all that confusion. Should Republicans work with Democrats to fund the government? Yes or no? Yes or no? Should Republicans work with the Democrats to fund the government? Yes or no? Oh, I'm looking through the chats. Here we go. Let me see. I mean, to me, it's just a simple, because let's keep this in mind. Everybody's going to pay their federal tax dollars regardless. You're all paying for this equally. See, you're all paying for MAGA Mike Johnson's check right now, period. Just like you're paying for Hakeem Jeffries. So if you think Republicans shouldn't work with Democrats, I wouldn't understand that, because Republicans don't have a supermajority in the Senate or in Congress. So that wouldn't make any sense to me. The answer should be yes. Because if you want something, you need to have the votes to get it. What the hell? A supermajority is not 51% of the House or Senate. A supermajority is 60%, something like that. So it means automatically that you need, to have an overwhelming control, right? To validate such decisions economically regarding funding, or it implies, if you don't have that overwhelming majority, it means that it implies that you should be working with the other side anyway. So I'm just curious about that. And again, economically speaking, blue states generate more of the federal government's functioning dollars than red states. So when you're negotiating with Democratic states, you're negotiating with more people who contribute to the federal budget. That's who you're negotiating with. And these people are very much aware of that. Democratic states are very much aware that they pay more, that their citizens, their residents, pay more into the federal budget than red states. So that's who you're negotiating with. You see, Texas is red. Yeah, Texas is a taker state. They generate less federal dollars than they use. They depend on federal dollars they depend on federal dollars from other states, money that's collected from other states. So that's how it is. Florida is also one of those. And Texas is talking about sending its National Guard to Chicago, to Illinois, where Illinois has its own National Guard, and Illinois generates more federal tax dollars than it uses. You see, it doesn't make any sense. It's called poor management. Now, the same people, MAGA Mike Johnson, who he's supporting 100%, if you listen to the question, what law have you voted against? What Trump proposal have you voted against? When MAGA Mike Johnson was asked that on CNN, the answer was none. He supported all proposals. So you see, MAGA Mike Johnson, he's not coming out and he's not talking about saying Qatar shouldn't have a military base on American soil. That's not what MAGA Mike Johnson is saying. MAGA Mike Johnson doesn't push back. So you have a leader of a congressional group that provides no pushback to their own president. That doesn't make any sense. Because whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're always supposed to have some pushback, but as a leader. But MAGA Mike Johnson, he's supposed to let the president know you ain't got the votes, bro. MAGA Mike Johnson didn't let Trump know you don't have the votes. In fact, he didn't even let Trump know this ain't how it even works, Trump. We need a supermajority. MAGA Mike Johnson never said that. MAGA Mike Johnson said, wait. Before you send these troops out to Democratic states, you need to understand we need their support to pass the federal budget. That means they are paying into the budget that you're using to send troops to their states. And if they don't like it, they might vote against it. Trump, don't you understand that? And that is what you're seeing right now. That's what you're seeing right now is democracy. The democracy you have. Whether you like it or not, you're seeing how it works when, you have three parts of the government. You got you got the Supreme Court Republican led, you got the White House, you got the Senate, and you got the Congress. What you're seeing is what happens when one party controls too much. What you get is another party that feels like they're paying the bills for their own oppression, and enough is enough. That's what you're seeing right now. And how it translates is you military, you National Guard that went from Texas to Chicago. That's against the Constitution. Stop. Fuck that. It's not getting funded. What it translates into is ICE people stepping and trashing on the Fourth Amendment of the United States citizens. Nah, fuck that. That won't be funded. What it's translating to is that, okay, military people, you're going to fucking help Qatar have a military base inside of the United States. Fuck that. That's not going to work. That won't be funded. That's what this is translating to, whether you like it or not, And if you don't like it, if you're okay with that, I think American citizens should do what they do. I'm an American citizen. Both sides of my family come from the colonial period of the United States of America, although I live outside of the United States. So I have universal health care. My kids have universal education. If American citizens vote for this, I'm totally okay with it, but it doesn't affect me. My tax dollars don't go to it. You see, so if Americans want to drag their own country down into hell, I'm 100% for it. If red state people want to pay 3 and 4 and 50 times and 60% more in medical costs just because they don't understand how federal funding works, I'm totally okay with that. I applaud you if that's what you choose. If you choose self-suicide, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I don't choose it. And it ain't my tax dollars. It's not affecting my life. So I'm totally cool with it. Now, back to the authoritarianism. Back to it. What MAGA Mike Johnson could do, since he's paid, since he still gets a salary, since he's still getting paid right now and the Marines aren't, the the Army isn't, the Navy ain't, ICE ain't, National Guard ain't, right? Since their way of life, their ability to pay their bills is on the line due to this president telling MAGA Mike Johnson to not negotiate with Dems specifically. MAGA Mike Johnson could still, since he still gets a check to work, he could do his job and swear in the elected officials that have been elected in special elections. However, MAGA Mike Johnson has decided not to do that. And this is what they're saying. They're saying it's connected to the Epstein files. Of course, it's connected to everything else that has to happen because she has to vote on everything else, right? If you're going to have a vote, this matters, who the congressional members are. If you're going to have a vote in Congress, Speaker Johnson said he'd swear in new House Democrat as soon as she wants. Now Republicans are backtracking. Speaker Mike Johnson is not planning to allow Democrats' newest Congresswoman-elect to be sworn in until her party agrees to end the government shutdown. So he's attaching swearing in, right, to an actual vote, to something that has to be voted on in Congress. That's different. So he's now saying that if you don't vote the way we want, we're not swearing you in. That's literally what he is saying. That is totally, I mean, if that's what you call democratic, then I say, hey, not funding the federal budget is definitely democratic. Listen, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's got to go both ways. Let's see what the deal is.
Johnson said he would swear in Adelita Grijalva whenever she wants. That was his words. As soon as she wants. And then a few hours later, his office put out a statement saying he's not planning to allow Democrats' newest member to be sworn in until her party agrees to end the government shutdown. One seems to have nothing to do with the other. Like, he could swear in. They've sworn in Republican members. Do you think this really is about signatures on that discharge petition, the Epstein files?
This is absolutely about Epstein. This is absolutely about Epstein and not wanting to take that.
Interesting.
Johnson said he would swear in Adelita Grijalva whenever she wants. That was his words. As soon as she wants. And then a few hours later, his office put out a statement saying he's not planning to allow Democrats' newest member to be sworn in until her party agrees to end the government shutdown. One seems to have nothing to do with the other. Like, he could swear in. They've sworn in Republican members. Do you think this really is about signatures on that discharge petition, the Epstein files?
This is absolutely about Epstein. This is absolutely about Epstein and not wanting to take that.
Okay, so now, if you think that it's okay for MAGA Mike Johnson to not swear her in and demand that they take a vote before swearing in an elected official, if you think that's okay, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't think it's okay, put a 2 in the chat. I just want to see. Now, the reason why I ask these questions is because later I go back once the live has been, gone through YouTube's process, you will be able to review the chat again. So I do my anthropology based on chat, right? So it takes a couple of hours before you will see the chat come up again when you see the replay, but that's the reason why I do it. So again, if you support MAGA Mike Johnson not swearing in an elected official, put 1 in the chat. If you are against it, put 2 in the chat. I just want to be very clear about this. Junior Cell, put a 1 or 2 in the chat. Let people know your opinion on the question. So again, sometimes trolls don't, they don't want to participate. Listen, Junior Cell, if you agree with MAGA Mike Johnson not swearing in an elected official, put a 1 in the chat. If you disagree, put a 2 in the chat. Yeah, I don't see why he shouldn't be swearing her in. She's elected. What other way does it work? How can you tell a person you're not gonna swear them in if they don't vote the way you don't like? That is ridiculous. She doesn't have to even vote on the shutdown if she doesn't want to. She could be absent. She could say, she could be president and still say non-vote, I'm a non-voter, and he doesn't even let her in, So to me, that's the most egregious thing you could do as a congressional leader of the majority party. Like, that indicates you are not for negotiating with the other side. And keep in mind, you need a supermajority to actually fund the federal government. It requires a supermajority, not 51%. It requires 60% or above. You see, generally speaking. So maybe it might be 61%, something like that, depending on the House or the Senate. But to fund, when dealing with matters of money, that's what's written into the Constitution. So, I'm totally against what he's doing. I also think it goes back to the days when the country didn't allow women to vote at all. You see, I think it harkens back to the 14th Amendment, and the things that ICE is doing, trying to step on the 14th Amendment. I think these things are all connected. And where do they intersect? Right there in Congress, right there in the White House, right there in the Senate. And I think it's just a sign that people need to stand up for their rights. Now, there's one other thing here. Let's go. Let me see. Was it this one? Right. Now, other things, weaponizing of government. Letitia James, this whole thing about Trump going back and, his appointees, they were all asked, are you going to weaponize the government? Are you going to go after political figures, political opponents of Trump's if you are sworn in? Now, they were all sworn in by the Senate. They all said, no, we're not. That is crazy. How could you think we would go after Trump's political opponents? How dare you? How dare you? Well, guess what they're doing? They're going after Trump's political opponents. They're going after Comey. They're going after anybody that prosecuted, Ghislaine Maxwell. They fired her ass. I mean, it's like, come on. Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's co-conspirator, and they went after the person that prosecuted her. It's like, come on. What is this fixation on letting criminals off the hook? Like, it is ridiculous, with when regarding the Epstein files. It seems like that is where they draw the line. Like, anyone who committed any acts along with Epstein, they are going to protect 100% these appointees by Trump. And on top of that, they're going to go at the same time after people who did prosecute Epstein and did prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell. They're going to, the same people are going after Trump's political opponents. This is not going to work, but nonetheless, they have nothing better to do than to try it, because that will take your attention off of every single thing else they're doing, like trying to get approving Qatar build a military base on American soil in Idaho.
Let's bring in Kristen
crazy.
Welker now, moderator of Meet the Press. Kristen, good morning. I mean, we'll see how these cases hold up in courts of law. In terms of the politics, how is this going over?
Well, Savannah, this is hugely significant. Both Letitia James and James Comey are not only frequent critics of President Trump's, but they were mentioned by him in that social post that Peter just showed you to Bondi. And it is creating fears of who might be targeted next. The day after Comey's indictment, President Trump said, I'll read it to you, quote, I think there will be others, adding that's his opinion. He has been explicit, though, about wanting to use the Justice Department against his political enemies. Will his critics find the links there? Now, both James Comey and Letitia James have been indicted by these federal grand juries. But zooming out just a little bit, Savannah, in the latest Pew poll, it found that 66% of people surveyed believe the president has improperly used his office to punish critics. So could this backfire? We'll have to see.
Kristen, of course, the other big story remains this government shutdown. We are in the 10th day now. A few days ago, there were reports that the two sides weren't even talking. Has that changed? And how long is this government shutdown tenable?
Craig, I wish I had a big update for you, but the bottom line is neither side is still talking. Instead, they're criticizing each other over the airwaves. There are a few new pressure points, though, that I think are worth pointing out, including Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene breaking with her own party, now urging them to negotiate with Democrats on health care. She says she's getting pressure from her constituents. Another big pressure point, military service members poised to miss their first paycheck on the 15th of this month if Congress doesn't take action. And finally, as you all have been reporting here throughout the week, there has been growing pressure at the airports with staffing shortages. Still, the party that starts to feel the most political pain is the party that will blink first. Public opinion polls show that most people right now are blaming Republicans, but no indication that either side is about to give in. Craig and Savannah.
All right, Kristen, thank you. And of course, we'll see you Sunday. Meet the Press. She's got an interview with Vice President J.D. Vance, among others.
Yeah, Leah, it is weird. That is a weird situation to be in when you're the only government really, they're the only, most Western countries have turned their back on Israel now pretty much. Maybe not 100% because there's a lot of small, intricate things that go along with it. But verbally and many legally have come out and just said, no, we're finished with Israel until Netanyahu is out, and they're against the genocide, essentially. And people are calling it genocide, whether it's adjudicated that way as genocide or not. It doesn't matter because it can be adjudicated as crimes against humanity in a lot of different ways, whether it's called genocide or not. But But it is strange that Trump is still, just blindly giving weapons to Israel and basically allowing them to do more than any president has ever allowed Israel to do independent. It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah. So me myself, there is a history behind all of that different people review differently, but I think it's pretty clear at this point that that whatever's happening ain't about Palestinian people because they've been doing the suffering, and there's never been a situation where they've had a fair chance to do things. There's a lot of different things that play a role in what's happening. A lot of countries outside fund things, and just like a lot of people fund Israel. So in my opinion, it's been that Palestinian people have never really had a chance at all, period. That it's always been Eastern influences and Western influences that have decided what has been going on, So on that case, yeah, I feel for Palestinians. But let me see here. Now, speaking about what is happening with the shutdown, speaking about Letitia James, there's some things people need to review. And this is the reality of it. So let's take a little listen. And again, this is just the law. You can go review it yourself if you disagree or if you agree. My whole view is don't agree with me. I'm only sharing my opinion as an American citizen, who both sides of my family come from the colonial period of the United States, who both sides of my family have fought in every war in the United States. I'm only giving my opinion. I'm not telling you to agree with me. If you don't agree with me, I'm not going to beat you over the head with a stick. I'm just stating my opinion. That's what my YouTube page is here to do. That's what my podcast is about, giving my personal opinion. Agreeing with it has nothing to do with it. Now, I live outside of the U.S., by the way, as an adult. With my kids, I get universal health care because I live in Denmark. My kids get universal education because they live in Denmark. That means them going to university has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with funding. It is, just up to them. If they want to go to go to technical school or trade school, that's up to them. It's free. It's paid for by the taxpayers. Everybody that goes to work pays for it. And if they have the grades for it, they go and they do it. It's not up to me. You see, it's their personal choice as an individual, not me. It has nothing to do with whether they can afford it. It has nothing to do with any of that shit. OK, there's enough places so everybody gets a chance. You may not get admitted the first year, but the year after you're on the list and you will get admitted. So here we go. I can go to a private hospital or a public hospital when I get sick because even the private hospitals are somehow connected to federal to federal funding here in Denmark and the taxes we all pay. Yes, we take home, even though we pay higher taxes, after we pay our taxes and after we pay our expenses like housing, water, electricity we have to pay independently, all of these other things, childcare. After we pay all of this shit, not childcare, but after we pay all of this stuff, we take home, all Europeans, including in Denmark, we take home $1,000 more in our pocket after paying all of our expenses, even with paying higher taxes than Americans do. So Americans take home less of their money, even though they pay lesser taxes, due to the high cost of education, due to the high cost of healthcare, because you guys pay a lot more for the same treatments. You pay a lot more for the same medicines. And that is because you've chose to, through electing your congressional members. This is what you've decided you wanted to do. You decided, unlike Denmark has a open capitalistic market of buying and trading and selling goods. You buy something and you trade it for whatever you want to sell it for. That's your free choice. People don't get paid the same salaries. It depends on your experience here. But Denmark has decided with healthcare and with education to do collective bargaining. That means all for one, one for all. The United States is not an all for one for all type of country right now. It's a have and have nots type of country. So having said that, let's review Letitia James.
Here's what I found out about why the first career federal prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia declined to bring charges against Letitia James, even though Donald Trump had pushed for them. Key facts. Letitia James, NY Attorney General, was accused of misrepresenting a home purchase in Virginia to a financial institution, in particular saying a property would be her primary residence, which could get favorable mortgage terms, when some evidence suggested she might rent it instead. CACSA.org, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, made a criminal referral to the DOJ around April 2025. Wikipedia. A career prosecutor in that U.S. Attorney's Office, EDA, reviewed the evidence and concluded that they did not have probable cause to file charges. The Guardian. Why no prosecution initially? The first prosecutor turned the case down because 1. Insufficient evidence for probable cause. The career prosecutor determined that the evidence available did not meet the legal standard needed to justify criminal charges. Probable cause means there has to be a reasonable basis to believe a crime has been committed. In this case, the prosecutor felt that standard was not met. The Guardian 2. Contradictory or ambiguous documents. Some of the evidence was disputed or contradicted by other documents. For example, while one form might have said the property would be a primary residence, other paperwork or communication, emails, mortgage applications, may have indicated otherwise, that it was not. These conflicting pieces made it harder to prove intention or misrepresentation beyond a reasonable doubt. Wikipedia 3. Legal and prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutors often weigh whether a case is strong enough, not just in terms of evidence, but also whether it is likely to succeed in court, whether it's worth the resources, whether it's fair, whether it meets policy thresholds, etc. If a case is marginal, prosecutors may decline to move forward. The career prosecutor evidently believed this case was marginal. WOSU Public Media 4. Resistance to political pressure. Several sources note that this career prosecutor resisted pressure from the Trump administration to bring charges despite that being demanded by Trump. The Guardian. If you want, I can dig into when and how the case later proceeded and what changed, if anything, to make charges possible thereafter. Yes, there are other recent allegations involving people associated with Trump, or Republicans more broadly, about declaring multiple homes as primary residence, or incorrectly, ambiguously declaring one when another might more properly be primary. The outcomes are mixed. Many are still under investigation or disputed, not proven in court. Here are some of the known cases and what has happened so far. Examples: 1. Lisa Cook, Federal Reserve Governor. Allegation: she was accused by Bill Polt, who is Trump's appointee as FHFA Director, of claiming 2 different properties as her primary residence at the same time, a condo in Georgia and a home in Michigan. AP News, what's happened? Cook denies wrongdoing. AP News, there is a lawsuit. She's sued the Trump administration to block removal from her post on the grounds that the effort to fire her is politically motivated and that due process legal standards haven't been met. AP News, also some documents, loan estimate, etc., show she called one of the homes a vacation home or second home, which provide material for her defense. AP News 2. Adam Schiff, U.S. Senator Democrat, frequent target of Trump's accusations. Allegation that he in various years declared his Maryland home as his primary residence for mortgage purposes, while also listing a California home as his principal residence or taking tax benefits, etc. TheDrillDown.com. What's happened? Schiff and his team have disputed the allegations, saying the homes are both used, that there was no intention to mislead, etc. Colorado Politics. There have been investigations or referrals by FHFA lenders, etc., looking into occupancy and mortgage documents. The Washington Post. As of latest reports, no public criminal prosecution has been brought against him, at least not that's confirmed. 2. Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General, Republican. Allegation: he and his wife claimed 3 separate homes as their primary residence, sometimes on mortgage documents. Also, they reportedly got homestead tax breaks improperly. Homestead tax break usually applies to primary residence on more than one property. TPR, what's happened? The revelations have drawn media scrutiny and political criticism. TPR, but I haven't found credible sources showing that Paxton has been criminally charged, as of now, for that specific claimed misrepresentation. 3.
All right. So generally speaking, this kind of issue has been, the idea about how many homes you own, if you own 2 homes, which one is your main residence and which one is not, it could change from time to time. It depends on when you're checking it, and the paperwork. And since there's several layers of paperwork to be done depending on what you're doing at that particular time, it looks like what happens, not in all of them, I don't know, you have to review them, but it looks like what typically can happen is that one statement can say one thing because one statement was taken at one time versus another statement being taken for another time for different purposes, whether it's a government document taken at a particular time versus a bank document for a loan or something like that that's taken at a different time, a complete different time, and then somehow this creating some confusion. And then there's other documents, because a lot of different types of things require that you list where your main residence is, So in this, it could be some issues there. But as you see, this has been across the board. Republicans and Democrats. And so to me, it looks like Letitia's case is probably going to go away again, just because, again, as they explain, if there is not intent, if you did not intend on filing false reports, then that's part of the prosecution. So a lot of that goes away. Now check this out. Ortis Malum wrote, "Socialism, Denmark is socialist masquerading as capitalism." Well, I think you got an issue about that, because it's not actually socialism to do collective bargaining on different things, because people in the United States do collective bargaining all the time. For example, all of you pay for the military. That's collective bargaining. All of you pay for that. Do you have a choice to not pay federal taxes? Why do you have to pay federal taxes? Why is that? That's called collective bargaining. You just choose what you want to pay for and what you don't. And so at the same time that you're doing that, you're paying for wealthy people that have firms in the United States. You're giving them part of your tax dollars. Why is that? Why can't they do it alone? See how that works? So, it's just not. A socialist country is a country where everyone gets paid the same salary, no matter what job they do. And that typically doesn't generate a good economy. Those countries would be North Korea, Vietnam, North Vietnam, countries that are pretty much failing globally. So I think Americans that basically lie. They like to throw the word socialism around because people don't really use it. There's no socialist countries anymore in the Western world, and there's only like 2 or 3 left in the entire world, period, right? And I think what they do is they like to say socialism as a way to be classist and elite. So but at the same time, their classism and elitism socializes the wealthy. They get everyone to pay for the rich. The rich get the tax deductions. The rich get corporations that they get federal dollars through directly, like Elon Musk, like Peter Thiel. And here's a crazy thing. Americans do socialism all the time. Look, Texas is a taker state. They generate less federal tax dollars than they use. That means they're getting money from other taxpayers across the country that have nothing to do with Texas to operate as a state. That's socialism, apparently, right? So again, I wouldn't call it socialism. I would just say it makes sense to do things that way. But when people abuse it, then it doesn't make sense. Now, and finding out whether they abuse it takes a more comprehensive look, not just generalizing. Okay, so somebody else said, Leah said, so how the United States used to be like, okay, let me see. Okay, so hold on, I can't have primary. You can't have two. You can have 2 primary residences. It depends on the timing, and what you're filling out. It can change. Your primary resident can change, and that's the thing about it. It could change in 1 year. It could change in 2 years, but you're not asked to fill out the same records yearly, every 6 months, but it depends. So it can overlap differently. So you're not allowed to have 2 primary residents, but that doesn't mean you listing it in the same year differently means that that's what you're doing. And I think that's where the confusion is at, people are quick to indict, not too quick to look into the details, and Elon Musk is getting $8 million a day from tax subsidies. I mean, nobody's mad at why aren't these Republicans mad that their tax dollars go to Elon Musk? $8 million a day. Well, so people that support Orders said China, Laos, Cuba, Vietnam, and North Korea. North Vietnam, North Korea, and they, China, maybe more, maybe a little bit more there, but you don't get paid the same salary in China. So sorry that if you're going to be pure socialist, where the term comes from, everybody gets paid the same. So you're just not correct about that. And in some cases, North Korea and North Vietnam, they get paid the same, and it's crazy. But let me see here. Let me get to somebody else's comments. Joselie says, 8 million. Again, now, do you agree in the chat, no matter what your party is, do you think it's okay that Elon Musk gets 8 million of your tax dollars a day? Do you think that's okay? If you think it's okay that Elon Musk gets 8 million a day of tax subsidies, right? That means taxes he don't have to pay while you have to pay. While you're being called lazy because you want some of your tax dollars to cover your health care, Elon Musk is not called lazy for getting tax subsidies. It's the same thing. So do you think Elon Musk should get these tax subsidies? Put a 1 in the chat if you think he should. If you think he should not, put a 2 in the chat. Let me see, because I don't agree with that shit. I'm like, you're a billionaire. You're the richest man on earth. Why you need tax subsidies? That doesn't make any sense. If the richest man on earth needs tax subsidies, that means automatically a lot of other poor people have to die. That just doesn't make sense. You can't have it both ways. Everybody funds him. Orders, you're not special. You just like everybody else. Stop saying I don't fund him under the table. You fund him. I don't fund him because I don't live in the United States of America. So my tax dollars goes to the local, just like every other dual resident. Your tax dollars go to the country you live in. It doesn't go unless you make more. And I don't make that. I don't make the same as everybody else, but I don't make enough to be paying money over to the U.S. government anymore. 38 billion in 20 years, and it's his companies. Well, his companies, yeah. Still, why does his companies? If it's his company, that's a tax subsidy. Why does his company get it? Does your company get it? Do you get it? You know, I mean, it's just that simple. And if he's the richest man in the world, why would he need it personally? That doesn't make any sense. But he's getting it because he benefits from his companies. He's getting money through his companies. Infinite X, did you know that Elon Musk doesn't do these companies for free? Yeah, this is crazy, man. Some people would do anything to just excuse. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway. Yeah, your company doesn't get it, Josie Lee, and most Americans' companies don't get it. That's the whole point. And I think, you know, some folks forget that. You know, again, it's about nuances, knowing your own country. There's some people don't know their own country, how their country operates. It's crazy, you know. And again, as you notice, a sign of that is this here. Bingo, bingo. These people, whether they know it or not, are funding this deal. The same people that support Trump are supporting this through supporting Trump. The same people that support MAGA Mike Johnson are supporting this through supporting MAGA Mike Johnson. The same people that support J.D. Vance are supporting this through their support of J.D. Vance. Because if J.D. Vance finds anything wrong with this, he should be saying it. If MAGA Mike Johnson finds anything wrong with this, he should be saying this, because this has everything to do with your tax dollars, whether you're poor and live in a MAGA state, whether you're poor and live in a blue state, whether you're middle class and work in a blue state, whether you're middle class and you work in a red state, your tax dollars go to this project right here. Do you agree with this project right here? Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with this project, especially if you had an opinion on another topic. If you agree, Ordis, do you agree with this, Ordis? Put a 1 in the chat. Leah, do you agree with this? Put a 1 in the chat. Sydney, do you agree with this? Put a 1 in the chat. DLWBCT, do you agree with this? Put a 1 in the chat. Matt Brooks, do you agree with this? Todd Crumpler, do you agree with this? With Qatar having a base in the U.S.? If you do, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't, put a 2 in the chat. Bear Grin, do you agree with Qatar having a U.S. base? Put a 1 in the U.S., put a 1 in the chat. If you disagree, put a 2 in the chat. I mean, it's just, yeah, there you go. Look at this. See, you see, but everybody has their fair share. It's fair chance to say what they think, you know. But again, this qualifies their other statements, because this is insane, obviously, right? So then, you know, the rest of their comments are equally as insane. But some people flip-flop now, because some people don't actually realize what they support. You know, and sometimes in the beginning, they support certain things, and then they get shocked when they find out they're supporting this too. So I see there's some people, OK, Order says yes, but no. Well, you better straighten that shit out, because your tax dollars are paying for this if you're an American citizen. And again, it only really has something to do when it comes to federal tax dollars and how it's spent, has something to do with American citizens and residents, people that live in the United States of America. If you don't live there, you know, then your tax dollars ain't going to it. But and I don't think DLWBCT lives in the United States of America. So we can just take that one out, you know. Yeah, Bergerin says, hell no, you don't. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I don't know too much about it to be. Oh, okay, Ordis. Well, you better get up. Or I don't know, Ordis. Do you live in the United States of America? I don't think so, because I think a lot of people have opinions about the U.S. but don't know really what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might want to check up on that. No, DW. Okay, so what's your healthcare program in Texas? What's it called? DWBCT. Just curious. All right, I'm gonna head out, y'all. I will be back later on today on this topic. Yeah, I'm not with this. I hope the Democrats hold out. I hope the Democrats keep the government shut down. That means nobody gets paid until this issue about this crazy lunatic president gets dealt with, and his sycophant vice president. You know, I hope the Democrats hold out. You don't need to bend or bow down. Blue states pay more to the federal budget than red states do. Let's have our speech understood. MAGA Mike Johnson is not following. He's not swearing in congressional members. So you already see they may not even want to have another election down the line. Trump is too old, so you never get a chance to impeach him. So let's just keep the government shut down and deal with things that way. On that note, I'm out. I'll see y'all later. I'm gonna let the chat run a little bit, and you let me know what your thoughts are. I'll see you guys back in a little bit. I appreciate everybody. If you haven't click like on the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And I'm gonna catch up with you guys in a few. I appreciate it. All right. So everybody be good today. I hope you have a good start to your weekend. One.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Release the Epstein files.
They want war. Crying babies looking for food. Starvation, the recipe. People subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every crew. Don't let it go. It's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a debt's owed? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die. You voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather. I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double. But nature gets the shit in a way that's subtle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TVs whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't tear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't stare. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.
Hi, Mr. Johnson. So my question or comments are related to what you said yesterday about not being open to pass any legislation to ensure that military gets paid. I'm sure you can tell by my voice I'm very shaky. Just want you to hear a little bit about my family. I have 2 medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country. He suffers from PTSD from his 2 tours in Afghanistan. If we see a lapse in pay come the 15th, my children do not get to get the medication that's needed for them to live their life, because we live paycheck to paycheck. I heard you earlier say that you side with President Trump on anything that he says. Well, I just read an article this morning that said he absolutely wholeheartedly believes that there needs to be legislation put in so that we do not miss a paycheck. You have the power to do that. And as a reply question or comments are related to what you said yesterday about not being open to pass any legislation to ensure that military gets paid. I'm sure you can tell by my voice I'm very shaky. Just want you to hear a little bit about my family. I have 2 medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country, suffers PTSD from his 2 tours in Afghanistan. Not get to get the medication that's needed for them to live their life. Because you say that you side with President Trump on anything that he says. Well, I just read an article this morning that said he absolutely wholeheartedly believes that there needs to be legislation put in so that we do not miss a paycheck. Have the power to do that. And as